Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. Picnics, barbecues, wiffle ball games, hours by the pool. There's all kinds of fun stuff you can do in your yard if you don't have to dodge mosquitoes constantly. And with Southeast Termite and Pest Control, you won't have to. Use their new mosquito treatment. It's brand new. They haven't done it before. It's better for the environment, and it's worse for mosquitoes. Basically, these little devils land in a certain vat of chemical, and then they carry it wherever they go. So even your neighbors will thank you because you're going to be getting rid of mosquitoes overall. But the beauty is other little flying creatures, fireflies, butterflies, bees, the things we need, they're not landing in this vat and taking that stuff with them. They're healthy. It's a great new treatment. Southeast Termite and Pest Control, southeasttermite.com. I've used them for years. You should too. Give them a shout this week. All right, take a look here. These are the latest recruiting rankings from 24/7 Sports, and I say latest as of about 9 o'clock last night. Things could have changed today, but Tennessee number 11th in 24/7's rankings. And of course, you know, as I've said for many years, recruiting rankings to me are a compass. They're not a GPS. You don't know exactly where it's going, but it does point you in the right direction. So if you've got a bunch of blue chips, 4 and 5 stars, you're good. Tennessee's at 69% of their commits so far are 4 and 5 stars. That's good. You're behind Georgia. You're behind Florida. Had a huge leap there. Texas A&M's ahead of you. LSU's ahead of you. And you know that Alabama's going to be ahead of them at some point. So as it stands right now, Ryan, that means, and we're back with Ryan Callahan, who works for GoVols247.com, a subsidiary of 24/7. Tennessee's going to be 5th or 6th in the SEC if it ended today, if you put Alabama there. All right. I would look at that and say, that's good, not great. I was expecting a jump. I'm the guy that always expects a jump. Haven't seen it yet. Should I have been expecting a jump or no?
I think a small jump. I think it was reasonable to expect Tennessee to build on what they did last year. You spent more time recruiting this class. All these guys that are committing now and getting ready to make decisions, they're the guys who were attending these games last fall that were so memorable for Tennessee. So it's natural you're going to be in the mix more for these guys than you were a year ago when you're selling a 7-6 season the year before. The difference is it's 1 year. I think it's going to take some time to continue to establish Tennessee as a top program before you can just, you know, it's not automatically one good season and you're suddenly in the top 5, but I think they are battling for a higher level of prospect across the board, and you're seeing that because they already have 11 4-stars in this class. They signed 13 4-stars and 1 5-star in last year's class. So it's clearly a step up, and you've got probably 10-plus players to be added to this class still, and that's maybe the most important part because those will be mostly higher-ranked players from here on out.
This one's a little off the beaten path here, but you see Florida, and Florida may just have one of those years. It may just be one good year, but they seem to have taken a considerable jump, bigger than your jump, and they didn't have the year you had last year, and they haven't been sending tons of guys to the pros, and their NIL was literally a joke recently. Should Vol fans be looking at that and saying, is Napier's crew better than Heupel's crew? Because it was, a month and a half ago, people were saying Napier can't recruit. Now he's number 3, and well, Napier's pretty good. So how should you compare Tennessee and Florida right now?
I think if you look at that, first of all, I say don't look at class rankings too much in July. They're a good guide of where you are. But
I do sports talk TV, baby.
But Tennessee's class could change a lot over the next month, first of all. Florida's could too. Florida could fall behind. We don't know for sure where things are going to stand a month from now. But if you remember Jeremy Pruitt's class in the 2020 class, it was ranked number 2 in the country in May. That looked great. It turned out to be a lot of kids that were better on paper than they were in reality as the class evolved, and they lost some of those guys down the stretch. So a lot can change, and I think some of that's Florida's going to get some guys. They're always still seen as a good program by a lot of players. They're in year 2 under Billy Napier. You've had more time to recruit these kids. And they've, I guess, patched things up with the collective, so I would imagine they're still competitive NIL-wise. So there's reasons Florida's still getting some players.
A few weeks ago, you were on with us, and you talked about the fact that Tennessee was in with a better caliber of player this year. There were some 4s, some 5s that were still out there. You even mentioned that there were some big-time defensive prospects who were out there that could wind up at Tennessee. All right, update. How many of those guys are now off the board? How many of those guys are still out there that Tennessee's after at this point?
Some are off the board. Now, the scary part, if you're looking at Tennessee's options out there, you're still excited because there are some 5-stars out there, legitimate possibilities. Kamarion Franklin, a 5-star defensive lineman. Kai Bates, a 4-star cornerback ranked just outside the top 100 nationally. There are players like that out there that are real possibilities for Tennessee. Edwin Spillman, a 4-star linebacker in state. But they're really thin on those types of options that are very realistic. So if they miss on a player at one position, it's going to really sting now because some of those other options, to your point, have kind of fallen off. A few have either started to trend elsewhere or have already gone elsewhere. So The options are thinning out. They've got to win some of these battles over the next month, or you might start to hear a little more hand-wringing about where this class is headed. But they have some very realistic options left on the board. If they win those battles over the next month, they'll be just fine.
Are you? Have they basically held their own from where we were when we had that conversation to now, or are you a little disappointed that they didn't get more of the guys they were targeting, or you say no, they did more than I thought they would do at this point? Where are you with that?
I think about what you would have expected to this point, because I always make this point too. The battles in some cases don't really start in this new NIL world until June, when guys start taking these official visits. So leading for a player in May doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot when things get real the next month. So Tennessee got off to a really good start with a lot of players, but I think the reality kind of comes into play more in June, where when you're battling Georgia, it's just hard right now. Georgia's recruiting on a different level. Last year, when you're battling Ohio State for a guy like Carnell Tate, that's hard. So some of these battles are just harder to win, and Tennessee's held their own, won their fair share so far, but they've still got to win more over the next month or so if fans are going to feel good about the progress.
All right, I was going to say best case scenario, but I'm not going to do that. Best realistic case scenario. What's your, in terms of ranking, we got to talk about the ranking. What's the best case?
I'll throw out
best realistic case.
Yeah.
I mean, best case is sign everybody they want. They're number one in the country. What do you think a good goal at this point would be?
I think, and with the obvious disclaimer that player rankings changing is the one thing you can't predict.
Right.
If a 3-star Tennessee commitment becomes a 5-star by this fall, that changes everything.
Well, and also if Kentucky comes out of nowhere and signs 10 5-stars,
sure,
they're going to jump you. No one would have seen that coming.
Yeah.
So
and you've made the point Alabama's going to leapfrog
yeah.
Tennessee. It happens pretty much every year. They make their move in July and August. So I think probably a 7 to 10 finish is a realistic possibility. I think most realistic though, probably toward the closer to 10 than I think some fans might like. I think 8 to 10, somewhere in that range, is maybe most realistic, just based on where things are looking right now. But again, it really depends on some of these specific battles. Do they get 5-star wide receiver Mike Matthews?
Okay.
It's guys like that. They've got to win some very specific battles to have a chance to move up to 7
then
or 8.
quickly, let's step through those names again, very quick. Just
Yeah.
throw out the names for the people who are sitting there going, yeah.
Yeah.
And that is like, we'll do it like it's election night, and he's got to win Pennsylvania, and
Yeah.
he's got to get Arizona. Who are the 2 or 3 guys that, if you want to be up there in the around 7 or 8, then you better get boom, boom, and boom?
I think some of the most important guys left on the board, just mentioned 5-star wide receiver Mike Matthews, USC and Clemson, the competition there, maybe Georgia hanging around. In-state, Amari Jefferson, a 4-star wide receiver. He's not as highly ranked right now, but he's got a chance to vault up in the rankings, and you're battling Alabama for him. Big-time fight. And then on defense, Kamarion Franklin, 5-star defensive lineman from Mississippi, your best chance to get an elite defensive lineman in this class.
Last one, I keep throwing things at you, we're going long, but to me, I'm not worried about offense. If he keeps signing great receivers, okay, terrific. He plays 3 a year, so you're going to do a 10 5-star receivers, but okay, that's great. I'm not worried about that. He's got a system that coaches those guys up. I'm worried about the defense. You need some studs who can go out there, drive killers, drive wreckers. You need 2 or 3 stops in a game. You're not going to stop everybody. Everybody's going to score 30 points, but you need 2 or 3 times where this pass rusher gets there and kills the quarterback, ends the drive. This DB makes a one-handed interception, wins the game. How are they doing on the defensive front?
Good so far, but again, some needs still to fill. It's in progress. It depends on the guys like Kamarion Franklin, Edwin Spillman in state. Can they get another elite edge rusher, a guy like 5-star Jordan Ross? Those big names are out there, but again, fewer names left to win from that pool. If they miss on a large percentage of those guys, it's going to start to look a little dicier. Excellent.
Ryan Callahan, thank you very much. When we come back, we talk a lot about culture. In sports talk, it's all about culture. We've done it here at Tennessee for years. Well, Butch's culture. Well, Pruitt's culture. Oh, now it's Heupel's culture. Is Georgia showing us that if you've got enough talent, culture really doesn't matter? We'll discuss that next. Come on back on the Sports Source.